You can't fake being unbeatable, but you can forge it. Musashi never waited for the world to recognize him. He trained until no one could deny him. His strength didn't come from noise. It came from repetition, focus, simplicity. That's the secret. Not brute force, but refined form. Not emotion, but awareness. You want to be unstoppable? Then build it in silence. Live it in discipline, and strike only when necessary. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind. And tell us, where are you watching from? Listen to me carefully. The strongest man in the room is usually the quietest. Let your work speak. You see these loud warriors everywhere, chest pounding, voice booming, telling everyone who will listen about their power, their skill, their victories. They mistake volume for strength. They are wrong. True power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. When you have truly forged yourself into something unbreakable, your presence speaks before your mouth opens. Your stillness carries more weight than their shouting. Musashi understood this. He walked into duels with calm eyes and steady breathing. No boasting, no theatrics, just readiness, pure, refined readiness. His opponents would size him up, see his quiet demeanor, and mistake it for weakness. Fatal error. The loud ones reveal their hand too early. They show you their moves in their words. They tell you their strategy through their emotions. They waste energy in display that should be saved for execution. But here's what most people don't understand about silence and strength. It's not passive. It's not weak. True silence is active awareness. It's the hunter watching prey. It's the storm before it breaks. It's power held in reserve, waiting for the precise moment to unleash. You think silence means you're being ignored? Good. Let them ignore you while you sharpen. Let them underestimate you while you prepare. Let them waste their breath while you conserve your energy. The quiet warrior has advantages the loud one never sees coming. First, you learn more when you speak less. While they're talking, you're listening. While they're revealing, you're observing. Information is power, and silence gathers information. Second, composure unnerves opponents. Your calm in the face of their aggression creates doubt in their mind. They start questioning themselves. Why isn't he intimidated? What does he know? That I don't. Third, energy conservation. Every word they waste is energy you save. Every emotional outburst from them is stability you maintain. When the moment comes to act, you'll be fresh while they're already drained. But let me ask you this. Are you confusing quiet confidence with weakness in your own life? Are you letting the loud voices in your field, your workplace, your community, make you think that volume equals value? Are you doubting your own strength because you don't feel the need to broadcast it? Stop. Your worth isn't measured by how much noise you make. Your power isn't proven by how many people you can convince with words. Your strength isn't validated by external recognition. It's validated by results. Musashi didn't become legendary because he talked about being great. He became legendary because he was great. 61 duels, never defeated, not through luck, not through politics, through skill, forged in silence and proven in action. Build like Musashi built. Train like Musashi trained. Move like Musashi moved. In silence, with purpose, without fanfare. Let your work speak. Let your results roar. Let your character whisper what your achievements shout. The world will notice. But by then, it won't matter what they think. You'll already know who you are. Reputation is not built in battle. It's built in repetition. Most people think Musashi became unbeatable because of his natural talent. They're wrong. He became unbeatable because when others rested, he trained. When others celebrated, he practiced. When others made excuses, he made progress. You want to know the real secret to becoming undeniable? Make your training so relentless that your skill becomes undebatable. There's no argument against mastery. There's no politics that can override competence. There's no favoritism that can compete with true ability. When you train until they can't deny you, you remove all variables except one, your performance. Musashi didn't train for recognition. He trained for certainty. The certainty that when the moment came, he would be ready, not hoping, not guessing, knowing. That's the difference between amateurs and masters. Amateurs train until they can do it right. Masters train until they can't do it wrong. Every morning before dawn, while his opponents were still sleeping, Musashi was moving, sword work, footwork, breathing. Not because he felt like it, because excellence demanded it. Here's what most people don't understand about relentless training. It's not about impressing others. It's about removing doubt from your own mind. When you've put in the work, truly put in the work, something changes inside you. Confidence stops being an act you put on. It becomes your default state. You walk different when you know you're prepared. You speak different when you know you're capable. You move different when you know you're ready. But let me ask you this. What are you training for right now? Are you training for your next opportunity? Or are you waiting for your next opportunity? To start training? Are you sharpening your skills in private? Or are you hoping your natural ability will be enough in public? Most people get this backwards. They want the recognition first, then they'll do the work. They want the promotion, then they'll develop the skills. They want the victory, then they'll put in the preparation. Champions think opposite. They put in the work first. They develop the skills first. They do the preparation first. Then victory becomes inevitable. Musashi never entered a duel wondering if he was good enough. He entered knowing he was ready. Not because someone told him, because his training told him. That's the power of undeniable preparation. It removes guesswork from performance. When you've swung your sword 10,000 times, the 10,000 and first swing isn't a guess, it's a guarantee. When you've practiced your craft daily for years, your next performance isn't hope, it's expectation. The world notices this kind of preparation. It can't help but notice. Mastery has a presence that can't be faked, imitated, or hidden. But here's the truth about training until they can't deny you. It's lonely work. While others are socializing, you're practicing. While others are relaxing, you're refining. While others are talking about what they're going to do, you're doing it. This separation from the crowd isn't punishment. It's investment. Every hour you spend alone with your craft is an hour invested in your future dominance. Musashi understood this deeply. His greatest battles weren't fought in public duels. They were fought in private training sessions, against fatigue, against doubt, against the voice that said, "Enough for today." He won those battles first. The public victories were just the announcement. Your training is your announcement too. Not to the world, but to yourself. Every session where you push past comfort, every repetition when you don't feel like it, every moment you choose improvement over ease, you're announcing to yourself who you're becoming. Train until your skill becomes your signature. Train until your preparation becomes your protection. Train until your readiness becomes your reputation. Train until they can't deny you. Because when that moment comes, and it will come, you won't need their approval. You'll have your proof. Scatter your mind, and you've already lost. Lock in, tune out, sharpen up. Focus is not a skill, it's a weapon. And like any weapon, it requires training, maintenance, and precise application. Musashi knew this. Every battle he won started in UNBEATABLE, his mind before his sword ever moved. You live in the age of infinite distraction. Your phone buzzes. Your mind wanders. Your attention splits between a dozen different thoughts, tasks, and worries. You think you're multitasking. You're actually multi-failing. The scattered mind loses to the focused mind every single time. When Musashi stepped into combat, there was no yesterday, no tomorrow, no crowd, no fear, no doubt. Just this moment, this opponent, this opportunity. Everything else disappeared. That's the power of true focus. It doesn't just improve your performance, it eliminates everything that weakens it. But here's what most people don't understand about focus. It's not about trying harder, it's about caring less about distractions, less about irrelevant details, less about things outside your control. The focused mind isn't cluttered with possibilities. It's clear about priorities. Musashi didn't waste mental energy wondering what his opponent might do. He focused on what he would do when his opponent moved. Not prediction, preparation, not anxiety, readiness. Your mind is like a lens. Scattered light illuminates nothing. Focused light cuts through steel, the same mental energy that spreads thin across multiple concerns can burn through any obstacle when concentrated on one target. But let me ask you this. What's scattering your focus right now? Is it the opinions of people who don't matter? Is it worries about outcomes you can't control? Is it the constant need to check, to update, to stay connected to everything except what's directly in front of you? Every master understands this truth. What you pay attention to grows. What you ignore withers. Your focus isn't just what you look at, it's what you become. Musashi focused on perfection of technique. He became perfect technique. He focused on readiness for combat. He became combat readiness. He focused on victory through preparation. He became inevitable victory. What are you focusing on? Really focusing on? Not what you think about occasionally, not what worries you sometimes. What commands your attention most consistently, because that's what you're becoming. The unfocused warrior sees every threat, considers every possibility, prepares for every scenario. Sounds smart. Actually stupid. By the time he's finished analyzing, the focused warrior has already struck. Focus creates speed, not just physical speed, mental speed, decision speed, execution speed, while your scattered mind is still processing options. Your focused mind has already chosen action. This is why Musashi could read opponents so quickly. His focus wasn't divided between defense and offense, between fear and confidence, between doubt and certainty. His entire being was aligned on one purpose: victory through superior execution. Your attention is your most valuable resource, more valuable than your time, because without attention, time becomes waste. More valuable than your energy, because without attention, energy becomes chaos. Guard your focus like Musashi guarded his life. Protect it, preserve it, point it deliberately. When you sit down to work, work. Not work plus check messages plus worry about later plus think about yesterday. Just work, complete, total, undivided. When you train, train. Not train plus plan dinner plus stress about tomorrow plus replay this morning's conversation. Just train. Present, focused, locked in. The world will try to steal your focus. Social media platforms profit from your scattered attention. News cycles thrive on your anxious distraction. Other people's emergencies demand your immediate reaction. Say no. Your focus belongs to your priorities, your dreams, your craft, your mission. Everything else is interference. Musashi never let interference determine his direction. He chose his target and eliminated everything that stood between him and that target, including thoughts, emotions, and concerns that didn't serve his purpose. Focus is the first edge because it sharpens everything else. Your training becomes more effective when focused. Your preparation becomes more thorough when focused. Your performance becomes more precise when focused. Lock in. Tune out. Sharpen up. The scattered lose to the focused every time, without exception. Choose your target. Point your mind. Pull the trigger. Practice until thinking slows you down. React without delay. Move with clarity. The moment you have to think about your response, you've already lost half a second. In combat, half a second is the difference between victory and death. In life, it's the difference between excellence and mediocrity. Musashi didn't think his way through fights. He flowed through them. Every movement had been practiced so many times that his body knew what to do before his mind could interfere. This is the secret power of repetition. It transforms conscious effort into unconscious mastery. Most people practice until they can do something correctly once. Masters practice until they can't do it incorrectly ever. There is a massive difference between these two approaches. When you practice something once correctly, you've proven it's possible. When you practice something 1,000 times correctly, you've made it inevitable. Musashi understood that battles aren't won by the smartest strategy in the moment. They're won by the most practiced response to that moment. While his opponent was thinking, he was moving. While they were deciding, he was delivering. But here's what most people don't understand about building reflexes through repetition. It's not about mindless drilling. It's about purposeful programming. Every repetition is a line of code written into your nervous system. Every practice session is an update to your operating system. Every drill is preparation for a situation you haven't encountered yet. You're not just training your muscles, you're training your instincts. When you've repeated something enough times, it stops being something you do and becomes something you are. The movement becomes part of your identity. The response becomes your nature. This is why champions look effortless under pressure, not because what they're doing is easy, but because they've made it automatic. Their excellence isn't strain, it's instinct. But let me ask you this. What are you programming into your reflexes right now? Every day, you're building patterns through repetition. The question is, are you building patterns that serve your goals or patterns that sabotage them? Every time you check your phone instead of focusing on work, you're programming distraction. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you're programming weakness. Every time you make excuses instead of improvements, you're programming failure. But every time you choose discipline over convenience, you're programming strength. Every time you push through resistance, you're programming resilience. Every time you do what you said you'd do, you're programming integrity. Musashi programmed victory through endless repetition of winning movements. Not just sword movements, mental movements, emotional movements, strategic movements. He practiced, staying calm under pressure until calm became his default state. He practiced reading opponents until insight became automatic. He practiced striking with precision until accuracy became involuntary. Your reflexes reveal your real training. Not what you say you practice, but what you actually repeat consistently. Under pressure, you don't rise to your expectations. You fall to your level of preparation. The beautiful thing about reflexes is that they don't judge the situation. They don't hesitate because the stakes are high. They don't freeze because the audience is watching. They just execute based on programming. This is why repetition is so powerful. It removes the variables that derail performance. Fear, doubt, overthinking, second-guessing, none of these can interfere with a properly trained reflex. When someone throws something at you, you don't think about catching it. Your hand moves automatically. That's a trained reflex. When you hear your name called, you don't decide whether to turn around. You just turn. That's programmed response. Now imagine having that same automatic excellence in your craft, in your career, in your relationships, in your personal development. That's what happens when you practice until thinking slows you down. Musashi never wondered what to do in combat because he'd already done it thousands of times in training. His body knew, his instincts knew, his reflexes knew. The fight was over before it started, because the outcome had already been programmed through repetition. Start programming your own victory. Choose the movements that matter most in your field. Practice them until they become reflex. Repeat them until they become identity. React without delay. Move with clarity. Win through preparation. Because when the moment comes, and it always comes, thinking will be too slow, but reflexes will be just right. Strength without discipline is a weapon pointed at yourself. Power is not about how hard you can strike. It's about how precisely you can strike when precision matters most. Musashi never swung with full force. He swung with perfect force. Exactly what was needed. Nothing more, nothing less. Raw power impresses crowds. Controlled power wins battles. You see this everywhere. The strongest man in the gym who can't control his temper. The smartest person in the room who can't control their ego. The most talented athlete who can't control their emotions under pressure. Power without control is chaos, and chaos always destroys itself. Musashi understood that true strength comes from restraint, not the restraint of weakness, but the restraint of choice, having the power to destroy, but choosing to preserve, having the ability to overwhelm, but choosing to outmaneuver. This is the difference between a bulldozer and a scalpel. Both can cut through obstacles. Only one can cut with precision. When you develop power without developing control, you become dangerous to everyone around you, including yourself. Your anger becomes destructive rather than protective. Your ambition becomes consuming rather than driving. Your confidence becomes arrogance rather than assurance. But here's what most people don't understand about control. It's not suppression. It's direction. You don't control power by hiding it. You control power by channeling it. Like a river that seems gentle on the surface but carries massive force underneath, true power flows with purpose, not pressure. Musashi's sword strikes weren't violent. They were surgical. He didn't attack with emotion. He acted with intention. Every movement served a purpose. Every technique had a target. Every application of force was measured and deliberate. That's the mark of mastery, when power serves wisdom instead of impulse. But let me ask you this. Where in your life is power without control creating problems? Is it in your communication, where you have the power to speak but haven't mastered when to stay silent? Is it in your work, where you have the ability to push harder but haven't learned when to pull back? Is it in your relationships, where you have the strength to demand but haven't developed the wisdom to understand? Uncontrolled power always backfires. Always. The person who speaks without filter alienates allies. The leader who pushes without sensitivity burns out teams. The competitor who fights without strategy wastes energy on the wrong battles. Control is not weakness. Control is power's highest expression. When you can destroy but choose to build, that's control. When you can dominate but choose to collaborate, that's control. When you can react but choose to respond, that's control. Musashi never fought with maximum force because he never needed to. His control was so precise that he could end conflicts with minimal effort. He applied exactly the amount of power required to achieve his objective, no more, no less. This is efficiency mastery, using the least amount of force necessary to produce the maximum result. It's not about being gentle, it's about being exact. Think of a master craftsman working with delicate materials. Too little pressure and nothing happens. Too much pressure and everything breaks. Perfect pressure creates perfect results. Your life requires the same precision. Too little effort and you stagnate. Too much effort and you burn out. Controlled effort creates sustainable progress. The uncontrolled warrior swings wild and wears himself out fighting shadows. The controlled warrior strikes once and eliminates the actual threat. One exhausts himself with activity. The other conserves energy for results. Control also creates fear in opponents, not because they're afraid of your power, but because they can't predict when and how you'll use it. Unpredictable violence is frightening. Controlled power is terrifying. When someone knows you have the ability to act decisively, but chooses when to exercise that ability, they realize they're dealing with something far more dangerous than raw strength. They're dealing with disciplined power. Musashi's opponents knew he could strike at any moment, but they never knew which moment he would choose. That uncertainty broke their focus before the fight began. Develop your power, but develop your control first. Build your strength, but build your discipline stronger. Increase your capabilities, but increase your wisdom faster. The most dangerous person in any situation isn't the one with the most power. It's the one with the most control over their power. Strength without discipline is a weapon pointed at yourself. Discipline with strength is a weapon pointed exactly where it needs to. Go master the control. The power will follow. Confidence is not self-belief. It's proof. You trained, you're ready. Walk like it. Real confidence doesn't come from positive thinking. It comes from positive preparation. Musashi didn't walk into duels hoping he would win. He walked in knowing he was ready to win. There's a universe of difference between hope and readiness. Most people try to build confidence through affirmations, visualization, and mental tricks. They're building on sand. True confidence is built on the bedrock of preparation. It's not what you tell yourself, it's what you've done for yourself. When you've put in the work, confidence isn't something you have to summon. It's something you can't avoid. Musashi spent years preparing for moments that lasted seconds. Every technique refined, every strategy rehearsed, every scenario anticipated. By the time he faced an opponent, the outcome wasn't uncertain. It was inevitable. That's preparation-based confidence. It doesn't waver because it's not based on feeling. It doesn't fluctuate because it's not based on mood. It exists because it's earned. But here's what most people don't understand about preparation. It's not just about building skills. It's about eliminating excuses. When you're truly prepared, you can't blame circumstances. You can't blame timing. You can't blame other people. You can't blame bad luck. You prepared for circumstances. You prepared for timing. You prepared for other people's actions. You prepared for setbacks. Preparation removes the variables that destroy confidence. Most people's confidence crumbles under pressure because it was never real confidence to begin with. It was hope disguised as confidence. It was wishful thinking, dressed up as self-belief. Real confidence doesn't crumble under pressure. It crystallizes under pressure. Because pressure is exactly what you prepared for. Musashi understood that confidence is a byproduct, not a goal. You don't develop confidence directly. You develop competence, and confidence follows automatically. When you know you can handle whatever comes, you stop worrying about what might come. When you know you're prepared for challenges, you stop fearing challenges. When you know you've done the work, you stop doubting the results. But let me ask you this. What are you preparing for right now? Are you preparing for your next opportunity? Or are you hoping your next opportunity will be easy? Are you building skills for the challenges ahead? Or are you hoping the challenges won't come? Preparation is not paranoia. It's power. The power to walk into any situation knowing you belong there. The power to face any challenge knowing you can handle it. The power to pursue any goal knowing you've equipped yourself for success. This is why prepared people seem so calm under pressure. They're not faking calm. They genuinely are calm because they know they're ready. Unprepared people reveal themselves. Immediately when pressure arrives, they panic, they freeze, they make excuses. They look for exits. Prepared people reveal themselves differently. They focus, they execute, they adapt, they find solutions. The difference isn't talent. It's not luck. It's not natural ability. It's preparation. Musashi never worried about facing superior opponents because he never faced them unprepared. His preparation was so thorough that he turned every disadvantage into irrelevance. Smaller, he prepared to be faster. Weaker, he prepared to be smarter. Less experienced, he prepared to be more strategic. Preparation doesn't just build confidence, it builds options. The more prepared you are, the more ways you can win. The more ways you can win, the more confident you become. But preparation requires sacrifice. While others are relaxing, you're practicing. While others are socializing, you're studying. While others are hoping, you're building. This sacrifice isn't punishment, it's investment. Every hour of preparation is an hour of future confidence. Every session of practice is a deposit in your readiness account. When the moment comes, you'll withdraw that confidence with interest. Musashi's confidence wasn't arrogance because it wasn't assumption. It was conclusion, based on evidence, supported by facts, proven through preparation. You trained, you studied, you practiced, you prepared, you're ready. Now walk like it, because confidence isn't self-belief, it's self-knowledge. And prepared. People know exactly who they are and what they can do. The proof is in the preparation. The confidence is in the proof. Get ready. Stay ready. Walk ready. Emotion clouds precision. Anger wastes energy. Calm makes you lethal. The angriest warrior is rarely the most dangerous warrior. Anger narrows vision, clouds judgment, burns energy that should be saved for execution. Musashi knew this. He struck. Without hatred, without rage, without emotional investment in anything except the precise application of technique. Cold steel cuts deeper than hot steel every time. You think emotion makes you stronger? You're wrong. Emotion makes you predictable. When you fight angry, you telegraph your intentions. When you compete jealous, you make desperate choices. When you act from hurt, you create more hurt. Musashi approached every encounter with the same detached focus a surgeon brings to an operation. Not because he didn't care about the outcome, but because caring too much about the outcome interferes with producing the outcome. This is the paradox of peak performance. You must care deeply about your mission while remaining detached from your emotions about the mission. Emotion is information, not instruction. It tells you something is important. It doesn't tell you how to handle what's important. That's where discipline comes in. When you learn to strike without emotion, you learn to act from clarity instead of reactivity. You respond to what is, not what you feel about what is. But here's what most people don't understand about emotional control. It's not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming emotion independent. Musashi felt fear. He felt anger. He felt frustration. But he didn't let those feelings make his decisions. He acknowledged them, then set them aside while he focused on what needed to be done. The warrior who fights from emotion fights from weakness. The warrior who fights despite emotion fights from strength. Emotion wants immediate satisfaction. Discipline wants ultimate success. When these two forces conflict, discipline must win. But let me ask you this. Where in your life are emotions making your decisions instead of informing your decisions? Are you avoiding difficult conversations because they make you uncomfortable? Are you making career choices based on what feels safe rather than what serves your growth? Are you responding to criticism with defensiveness instead of assessment? Emotional decisions feel good in the moment, but create problems over time. Disciplined decisions feel difficult in the moment, but create solutions over time. Musashi never struck in anger because angry strikes are imprecise strikes. He never defended in fear because fearful defense is reactive defense. He never attacked from pride because prideful attacks are wasteful attacks. He struck when striking served his objective. He defended when defending protected his position. He attacked when attacking created advantage. Pure strategy. Zero emotion. This doesn't make him cold. It makes him effective. Emotion in combat is like static in communication. It interferes with the signal. It corrupts the message. It reduces clarity. When you strike without emotion, your technique becomes pure. Your timing becomes perfect. Your energy becomes efficient. You stop wasting movement on feelings and start investing movement in results. The emotional fighter wastes energy expressing how they feel. The disciplined fighter saves energy for executing what works. Watch a master craftsman at work. No wasted motion, no frustrated gestures, no celebratory flourishes. Just precise application of skill to achieve the desired result. That's how Musashi fought. That's how you should compete. Emotion also creates openings for opponents. When you fight angry, they can bait your anger. When you fight fearful, they can exploit your fear. When you fight prideful, they can manipulate your pride. But when you fight disciplined, there's nothing to exploit except your competence. And competence, properly applied, is unexploitable. This is why Musashi was so difficult to defeat. His opponents couldn't read his emotional state because he didn't have one during combat. They couldn't predict his actions based on his feelings, because his feelings weren't driving his actions. Strategy was driving his actions. Technique was driving his actions. Objective was driving his actions. Learn to separate feeling from function. You can feel frustrated about a setback while still taking the next logical step forward. You can feel nervous about a challenge while still preparing systematically for that challenge. Your emotions are yours to experience. Your actions are yours to control. Don't let the first contaminate the second. Strike without emotion. Move without mood. Execute without excitement, because calm precision defeats emotional explosion every single time. The moment you make it personal, you make it harder. The moment you make it emotional, you make it complicated. Keep it simple. Keep it strategic. Keep it effective. Strike clean, strike cold, strike to the point. Emotion clouds precision. Discipline creates it. Refine until nothing extra remains. Complexity is a weakness. The master's technique looks simple because it is simple. Not simple like easy, simple like pure. Every unnecessary movement removed. Every redundant element eliminated. What remains is essence, and essence is unstoppable. Musashi didn't win through elaborate combinations or flashy techniques. He won through direct, simple, perfectly executed fundamentals. One clean strike instead of 10 complex ones. One precise movement instead of multiple approximate ones. Complexity impresses beginners. Simplicity devastates experts. Most people add when they should subtract. They think more techniques mean more options. More strategies mean more chances to win. More tools mean better results. They're wrong. More often means confusion. More techniques mean slower decisions. More strategies mean divided focus. More tools mean maintenance overhead. The expert does fewer things better rather than more things adequately. Musashi understood that in the moment of truth, you don't have time to choose between 17 different responses. You need one response. That works every time. One movement you've practiced 10,000 times. One technique so refined it becomes instinct. But here's what most people don't understand about simplicity. It's not the absence of sophistication. It's sophistication perfected. A simple technique is a complex technique with all the complexity removed. It started complicated. Through endless refinement, it became simple. Through continuous practice, it became reliable. True simplicity is earned, not given. When you watch Musashi's recorded techniques, they appear almost boring in their directness. No fancy flourishes, no unnecessary movements, just efficient application of force to achieve the desired result. That apparent simplicity represents years of complexity refined into essence. Think about this. The most effective communication is simple communication. The most powerful ideas are simple ideas. The most useful tools are simple tools. Complexity exists to impress others. Simplicity exists to produce results. But let me ask you this. Where in your life are you choosing complexity over effectiveness? Are you making your work processes more complicated than they need to be? Are you overcomplicating your fitness routine when basic exercises would produce better results? Are you adding unnecessary steps to simple tasks? Complexity is often a form of procrastination. We make things complicated to avoid the discomfort of doing them simply and directly. Simple is harder than complex because simple requires choice. You must decide what matters most. You must eliminate what matters less. You must commit to fewer things done better rather than more things done poorly. Musashi committed to sword mastery instead of attempting mastery of every weapon. He focused on winning duels instead of competing in every possible contest. He refined specific techniques instead of collecting endless techniques. His simplicity was strategic. It allowed him to go deeper instead of wider, to become unbeatable at what mattered instead of adequate at everything. The enemy of mastery is always variety. When you try to master everything, you master nothing. When you try to be good at everything, you become great at nothing. Simple systems are robust systems. They have fewer points of failure. They require less maintenance. They perform more consistently under pressure. Complex systems break down when one component fails. Simple systems keep working because there are fewer components to fail. This is why Musashi's techniques worked consistently. They weren't dependent on perfect conditions, ideal timing, or cooperative opponents. They worked because they were simple enough to execute under any circumstances. Your success systems should have the same quality. Simple enough to maintain when life gets complicated. reliable enough to produce results when conditions aren't perfect, direct enough to execute when time is limited, cut away everything that doesn't directly serve your objective, eliminate steps that don't add value, remove elements that create friction without creating results. What remains will be more powerful than what you started with because it will be pure power, not diluted power. Musashi's sword strikes weren't weaker because they were simple. They were stronger because all the energy went toward the target instead of toward impressive but ineffective movements. Your efforts should have the same focus, all energy toward the result. None wasted on appearance, complexity, or unnecessary sophistication. Refine until nothing extra remains. What's left will be lethal in its effectiveness, because complexity confuses, simplicity kills. Silent, certain, simple. Most people quit when it gets repetitive. That's where your edge begins. Boredom is not your enemy. Boredom is your opportunity. The moment when training stops being exciting and starts being mundane, that's when real masters are born. Because that's when most people quit and true champions continue. Musashi didn't become legendary during the exciting moments of his journey. He became legendary during the boring moments, the 10,000th sword swing, the 100th meditation session, the countless hours of solitary practice when no one was watching and nothing dramatic was happening. Excellence is built in the margins of mediocre moments. Everyone can train when they feel motivated. Everyone can practice when they feel inspired. Everyone can push themselves when they feel energized. The question is, what do you do when you feel nothing? That's when character reveals itself. That's when commitment proves itself. That's when ordinary people separate from extraordinary people. The unbeatable mind is forged in the furnace of repetitive, unglamorous, seemingly pointless practice. Not because the practice is pointless, but because the point isn't immediately visible. Boredom tests your relationship with process over results. Do you train because training produces immediate satisfaction, or do you train because training produces eventual mastery? Most people need their practice to feel good. Masters need their practice to be good. There's a massive difference between these two approaches. When practice feels good, you're dependent on feeling for consistency. When practice is good, you're dependent on logic for consistency. Feelings fluctuate. Logic remains constant. But here's what most people don't understand about boredom in training. It's not empty time. It's concentrated time. When the excitement is gone, what remains is pure skill development. Boredom strips away the distractions of novelty and forces you to focus on fundamentals. You can't rely on adrenaline to carry you through. You can't depend on excitement to energize you. You must find motivation in the process itself. Musashi embraced this boring phase of mastery. He understood that the path to extraordinary passes directly through ordinary. You cannot skip the mundane and arrive at magnificent. Every master's journey includes a long period where nothing seems to be happening, where progress feels invisible, where improvement feels impossible. This isn't a sign that you should quit. It's a sign that you're entering the territory where mastery lives. But let me ask you this. What are you avoiding because it feels boring? Are you switching workout routines every few weeks because consistency feels monotonous? Are you changing strategies before they have time to work because persistence feels tedious? Are you seeking new methods instead of mastering basic methods? Boredom reveals commitment. When the honeymoon phase ends and reality begins, you discover whether you're truly dedicated to the outcome or just attracted to the idea of the outcome. Most people are activity addicts. They need constant stimulation, variety, and novelty to maintain interest. Masters are result addicts. They'll do whatever it takes, however boring it might be, to achieve their objective. The boring phase is where your competition drops out. It's where the pretenders reveal themselves and the contenders prove themselves. It's where the difference between wanting something and earning something becomes crystal clear. Musashi's opponents often quit training when it stopped being fun. He continued training when it started being effective. His advantage wasn't natural. Talent, it was unnatural persistence through natural boredom. Boredom is also where breakthroughs happen, not despite the repetition, but because of the repetition. You practice the same technique hundreds of times, and suddenly, on repetition number 347, something clicks. A tiny adjustment in angle, a slight shift in timing, a microscopic improvement in form. These tiny adjustments compound into massive advantages over time, but they only happen to people who persist through the boring phase long enough to discover them. Excellence isn't a single dramatic transformation. It's thousands of tiny improvements accumulated through thousands of boring repetitions, each repetition barely noticeable. The cumulative effect undeniable. When you embrace boredom instead of avoiding it, you gain access to a level of mastery that excitement-dependent people never reach. You develop consistency that motivation-dependent people never achieve. You build results that feeling-dependent people never produce. The unbeatable mind is built in boredom because boredom eliminates everything except pure commitment to the process. No drama, no excitement, no external motivation, just you, your craft, and your decision to continue when continuing feels pointless. That's where legends separate from wannabes. That's where champions distance themselves from competitors. That's where the unbeatable earn their right to be unbeaten. Most people quit when it gets repetitive. That's exactly where your edge begins. Embrace the boring. Master the mundane. Excel in the ordinary, because extraordinary is just ordinary extended past. The point where most people stop. What you understand, you neutralize. See their mind, beat it. Musashi never fought opponents, he fought patterns. Every swordsman had habits. Every warrior had preferences. Every fighter had weaknesses disguised as strengths. His job wasn't to overpower them. It was to understand them completely, then make that understanding irrelevant. Victory begins in observation, not action. Most people rush into competition trying to impose their strengths on the situation. Smart competitors study the situation first, then adapt their strengths to exploit what they discover. Musashi spent the first moments of every encounter not attacking, but learning. How does this opponent move? Where do they put their weight? What do they do when pressured? What do they do when given space? He wasn't stalling. He was gathering intelligence. And intelligence always defeats force when properly applied. But here's what most people don't understand about studying opponents. You're not looking for their weaknesses. You're looking for the patterns that create their weaknesses. Everyone has weaknesses. Not everyone reveals the patterns that make those weaknesses exploitable. That's what separates casual observation from strategic analysis. The aggressive fighter telegraphs through muscle tension before attacking. The defensive fighter shifts weight before retreating. The confident fighter drops guard slightly when they think they have advantage. The nervous fighter breathes differently under pressure. These aren't accidents. They're patterns. And patterns can be predicted, manipulated, and exploited. Musashi didn't just see what opponents did, he saw why they did it. He understood the mental process that created the physical action. Once you understand the mind, the body becomes predictable. Most competitors focus on countering actions. Masters focus on disrupting intentions. There's a massive difference between these approaches. When you counter actions, you're always reacting. When you disrupt intentions, you're controlling the entire interaction. You're not just responding to their moves, you're influencing their next move before they make it. But let me ask you this. How much time do you spend studying your competition versus focusing on your own performance? Most people are so focused inward that they miss critical information about the external environment they're competing in. They know their own strengths and weaknesses intimately, but remain ignorant about their opponent's patterns and preferences. This is strategic blindness. You're fighting with one eye closed. Musashi studied not just individual opponents, but types of opponents. The hot-headed fighter who could be baited into mistakes, the calculating fighter who could be pressured into hesitation, the experienced fighter who relied too heavily on past success. Each type required different approaches, different timing, different psychology. What worked against aggression failed against patience. What succeeded against confidence backfired against desperation. Understanding the opponent wasn't just about winning the current fight. It was about developing a library of responses for future encounters. Every study session added tools to his tactical arsenal, but studying opponents is only half the equation. The other half is erasing their advantages. Once you understand what makes someone effective, you can systematically neutralize those advantages. If they rely on speed, you control distance. If they depend on power, you avoid direct confrontation. If they trust experience, you create unfamiliar situations. You don't beat opponents by being better at their game. You beat them by making their game irrelevant. Musashi never tried to outmuscle stronger opponents or outspeed faster ones. He created conditions where strength didn't matter and speed provided no advantage. He fought on his terms, not theirs. This requires strategic thinking beyond immediate tactics. You must see the bigger picture of what creates their success, then methodically dismantle those conditions. The proud fighter loses power when their pride is ignored. The angry fighter becomes manageable when their anger finds no target. The technical fighter struggles when technique becomes insufficient. Study reveals the mechanism. Strategy disables the mechanism. Every advantage has conditions that make it possible. Change the conditions. Eliminate the advantage. Control the environment. Control the outcome. Musashi understood that fights aren't won through superior technique alone. They're won through superior understanding applied through adequate technique. Know your opponent better than they know themselves. Then use that knowledge to make their strengths irrelevant and their weaknesses inevitable. What you understand, you neutralize. What you neutralize, you defeat. See their mind. Beat it. Before the clash, your calm, your stillness, your eyes must say, you've already lost. The fight begins before the first strike. It begins the moment opponents see you, the moment they feel your presence, the moment they recognize they're facing something different from what they expected. Musashi won most of his duels before they started because his presence communicated competence, preparation, and unshakable confidence. His opponents felt defeated before they felt attacked. Presence is power projected through stillness, not action. Most people think presence means being loud, dramatic, or intimidating. They try to create presence through performance. They mistake theatrics for gravitas. They confuse noise for power. Real presence doesn't perform. It simply is. It doesn't announce itself because it doesn't need to. It's felt before it's seen and recognized before it's explained. Musashi's presence came from inner certainty, not outer display. He knew he was prepared. He knew he was capable. He knew he belonged in that moment. That knowledge radiated from him without effort or artifice. When you truly know who you are and what you can do, that knowledge becomes visible to others. Not through what you say, but through how you exist in space. But here's what most people don't understand about developing. Commanding presence, it's not about impressing others. It's about being genuinely impressive. You can't fake the kind of presence that breaks opponents before competition begins. It must be real. It must be earned. It must be based on actual capability, not imagined capability. Fake presence crumbles under pressure. Real presence strengthens under pressure. Musashi's presence was unshakable because it was built on unshakable foundation, years of training, thousands of repetitions, absolute confidence in his preparation, complete trust in his abilities. His stillness wasn't empty. It was full of readiness, full of capability, full of controlled power, waiting for the right moment to express itself. That's the difference between nervous stillness and powerful stillness. Nervous stillness comes from not knowing what to do. Powerful stillness comes from knowing exactly what to do, and waiting for the right moment to do it. Opponents could sense this difference immediately. They could feel the weight of his preparation. They could recognize the depth of his competence. They could perceive the certainty of his confidence. This psychological impact often determined outcomes before physical confrontation began. But let me ask you this. What does your presence communicate in important moments when you walk into a job interview, an important meeting, a challenging conversation? What do people feel from you before you speak? Do they sense competence or nervousness, preparation or desperation, confidence or insecurity? Your presence is always communicating something. The question is whether it's communicating what serves your objectives. Presence isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It's about being the most prepared person in the room. It's not about demanding attention. It's about earning respect. It's not about creating fear. It's about inspiring confidence in yourself first, in others second. Musashi never tried to intimidate opponents through aggression or threats. He intimidated them through obvious competence. They could see in his bearing, his movement, his stillness, that they were facing someone who belonged exactly where he was. That belonging is what creates unshakable presence. When you know you've earned your place in that moment through preparation and capability, your confidence becomes undeniable. Presence also comes from accepting the moment completely. No wishing you were somewhere else. No hoping for different circumstances, no anxiety about outcomes, just total acceptance of what is and total readiness to handle what comes. This acceptance creates calm. Calm creates clarity. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence creates presence. The opponent who sees this kind of presence begins questioning themselves before the confrontation begins. Why is he so calm? What does he know that I don't? How can he be so still when I feel so agitated? These questions create doubt. Doubt creates hesitation. Hesitation creates opportunity for the prepared competitor. Your presence should make opponents wonder if they prepared enough, if they've trained enough, if they belong in the same arena with you, not because you're trying to intimidate them, but because your preparation is genuinely intimidating to those who haven't prepared as thoroughly. Build presence through competence. Develop gravitas through preparation. Create impact through readiness. Walk into every important moment like you've earned the right to be there. Because if you've done the work, you have. Before the clash, your calm, your stillness, your eyes should communicate exactly what Musashi's communicated. I'm ready. I belong here. And I will not be moved. That's presence. That's power. That's victory before the first move. No drama, no noise, just precision, exit, silence. The mark of true mastery is not in the power of the strike, but in the economy of the aftermath. Musashi ended conflicts quickly, cleanly, and completely. Then he left. No celebration, no gloating, no unnecessary explanation. The work was done. The outcome was final. Additional commentary was irrelevant. Most people don't know when to stop. They win an argument and keep arguing. They solve a problem and keep explaining. They achieve an objective and keep pushing past the point of effectiveness. This is victory corruption. Success that becomes failure because you don't know when enough is enough. Musashi knew when enough was enough, always. He struck with exactly the force required to achieve his objective. Not more, not less. Then he stopped. No wasted energy on celebration. No wasted time on explanation. No wasted movement on excess. Execute. Complete. Exit. This isn't coldness, it's efficiency. When something is finished, it's finished. Moving. Past finished creates problems where none need to exist. But here's what most people don't understand about clean exits. They require as much discipline as effective entrances. Starting strong is one skill. Finishing clean is another skill entirely. Most people develop the first while neglecting the second. They know how to begin but don't know how to end. Musashi mastered both. He entered conflicts with perfect preparation. and exited conflicts with perfect completion. Nothing left undone, nothing taken too far. The clean exit preserves energy for the next challenge. It maintains relationships that don't need to be damaged. It avoids complications that don't need to be created. When you've achieved your objective, additional action often works against that achievement. You can win a negotiation and then lose it by negotiating past the win. You can solve a conflict and then recreate it by explaining past the solution. Know when to cut, know when to stop, know when to leave. But let me ask you this. Where in your life are you continuing past completion? Are you explaining past understanding? Are you arguing past agreement? Are you working past effectiveness? Are you trying past success? Overextension weakens strong positions. Over-explanation complicates clear communication. Over-effort diminishes efficient results. Musashi understood that silence after action speaks louder than words. His reputation grew not from what he said about his victories, but from what others observed about his victories. He let results speak for themselves because results are more credible than commentary. Outcomes are more persuasive than explanations. Evidence is more powerful than arguments. The quiet exit also maintains mystique. When you don't explain everything, people respect the unexplained. When you don't celebrate everything, people respect the uncelebrated achievement. Power that doesn't announce itself appears more powerful than power that does. Competence that doesn't explain itself seems more competent than competence that does. Musashi's quiet exits created questions that enhanced his reputation. How did he move so quickly? Why doesn't he stay to explain? What makes him so confident in his technique? These questions worked in his favor because they positioned him as someone whose methods were beyond ordinary understanding. Someone operating at a level that didn't require external validation. This perception became protection. Opponents approached him with hesitation because they couldn't fully understand what they were facing. The unknown element created psychological advantage before physical confrontation began. Your clean exits should create similar effects. When you complete objectives efficiently and move on quietly, people notice the efficiency. They respect the confidence. They wonder about the capability that allows such decisive action. But clean exits require internal security. You must be satisfied with your own assessment of your performance. You can't need external validation of your success. You can't require public recognition of your achievement. The work itself must be enough. The outcome itself must be satisfying. The completion itself must provide closure. Musashi derived satisfaction from excellent execution, not from audience appreciation. His rewards came from personal standards met, not public praise received. This internal scorecard allowed him to exit cleanly because he didn't need anything from the external environment except the completion of his objective. Build that same internal security. Develop that same self-validation. Create that same independence from external approval. Then, when you achieve what you set out to achieve, you can complete, exit, and move forward without requiring anything additional from the situation. Cut fast when cutting serves your objective. Walk away quiet when walking away preserves your position. Leave silence where explanation would create complication. No drama, no noise, just precision, exit, silence. Because the strongest statement is often no statement at all. Unbeatable men fear less because they prepare more. Don't guess, train. Fear lives in uncertainty. Uncertainty lives in lack of preparation. Therefore, fear is eliminated through preparation, not through courage, but through competence, not through bravery, but through readiness. Musashi rarely felt fear because he rarely encountered situations he hadn't prepared for. His training was so comprehensive that most scenarios fell within his range of practiced responses. This is the secret to fearlessness. Prepare for everything, then fear nothing. Most people try to overcome fear through positive thinking, motivation, or willpower. They attack the symptom while ignoring the cause. Fear isn't a mental problem, it's a preparation problem. When you're truly prepared, fear has nothing to attach itself to. There's no uncertainty for it to exploit, no doubt for it to amplify, no gap between challenge and capability for it to occupy. But here's what most people don't understand about fear and preparation. Fear isn't always wrong. Sometimes fear is information. It's telling you that you're not ready, that you haven't prepared enough, that you're missing something important. Smart people listen to fear as a diagnostic tool, then use that information to prepare better. Musashi felt fear early in his development, but instead of ignoring it or fighting it, he used it as feedback. What was he afraid of? What scenarios concerned him? What outcomes worried him? Then he trained specifically for those scenarios. He prepared specifically for those outcomes. He practiced specifically for those challenges until fear had no basis. In reality, fear is often a gift disguised as a problem. It identifies weak points in your preparation. It highlights areas that need more training. It points toward skills that need development. The warrior who never feels fear is either completely prepared or completely deluded. Musashi was the first, not the second. But let me ask you this. What fears are you experiencing right now, and what do they tell you about your preparation gaps? Are you afraid of public speaking because you haven't practiced public speaking? Are you afraid of difficult conversations because you haven't prepared for difficult conversations? Are you afraid of challenging opportunities because you haven't developed challenging capabilities? Fear points toward your homework assignments, the things you need to learn, practice, and master before you're truly ready. Most people avoid their fears, which means they avoid their development opportunities. They stay comfortable, which means they stay limited. They choose certainty, which means they choose stagnation. Musashi ran toward his fears because he understood they marked the boundaries of his current capabilities. To expand those capabilities, he had to train beyond those boundaries. Every fear overcome through preparation became a strength gained through competence. Every uncertainty eliminated through practice became confidence built through proof. This is how preparation transforms personality. You don't become fearless by pretending you're not afraid. You become fearless by becoming competent enough that fear has no rational basis. The prepared mind doesn't eliminate all fear. It eliminates unnecessary fear. Fear based on uncertainty, inadequacy, or lack of readiness. What remains is healthy. Caution based on legitimate risks and appropriate responses. Musashi still felt appropriate caution in dangerous situations. But he didn't feel paralyzing fear in manageable situations. His preparation had calibrated his emotional responses to match actual risk levels. Weak routines create strong fears. Strong routines create weak fears when your daily habits don't. Prepare you for your stated goals. You live in constant low-level anxiety about your readiness. When your training doesn't match your ambitions, you carry persistent doubt about your capabilities. But when your routine systematically builds the skills you need for the challenges you'll face, fear becomes irrelevant. Not because challenges disappear, but because your readiness for challenges increases faster than the challenges themselves. Musashi's routine was designed around worst-case scenarios. He prepared for opponents stronger than he was, faster than he was, more experienced than he was. When he faced normal opponents, they seemed manageable by comparison. This is the power of over-preparation. When you train for extreme challenges, normal challenges feel routine. When you practice for emergency situations, regular situations feel comfortable. Build routines that eliminate the foundation of fear. Train for scenarios that worry you, practice skills that you lack, develop capabilities that you need. Don't guess what might happen and hope you'll figure it out. Know what might happen and train until you're ready for it. Fear is the shadow of a weak routine. Strengthen the routine, and the shadow disappears. Unbeatable men fear less because they prepare more. That's not courage. That's intelligence. Don't guess, train. Don't hope. Prepare. Don't worry. Practice. Because fear feeds on uncertainty, and uncertainty dies in preparation. They can't block what they can't read. Flow around them. Leave no trace. The most dangerous fighters aren't the ones with the most recognizable style. They're the ones with no style at all. Musashi understood this paradox deeply. Style makes you predictable. Formlessness makes you unbeatable. When you develop a signature approach, you give opponents something to study, prepare for, and counter. When you remain formless, you give them nothing to grab onto. Like water, formlessness takes the shape of whatever container it encounters while maintaining its essential power to flow and penetrate. Most fighters spend years developing their personal style. They want to be known for something distinctive. They want recognition for their unique approach. They want to build a reputation around specific techniques. Musashi wanted none of this. He wanted only victory. And victory often requires abandoning the very methods that brought previous victories. This is the trap of success. Your strengths become your prison. What works once becomes what you rely on, always. What made you successful becomes what prevents future success. Style is a limitation disguised as an identity. But here's what most people don't understand about formlessness. It's not the absence of form. It's mastery of all forms combined with attachment to none. Musashi studied every fighting style available to him. He learned their techniques, understood their principles, practiced their movements. Then he integrated the best elements while discarding their limitations. He became a master of many styles rather than a prisoner of one style. This gave him options where others had habits, flexibility where others had rigidity, adaptability where others had predictability. When opponents prepared for Musashi the swordsman, he appeared as Musashi the strategist. When they prepared for his aggressive approach, he became defensive. When they anticipated his defensive tactics, he became aggressive. They couldn't prepare for him because there was no consistent him to prepare for. Only objectives pursued through whatever methods circumstances demanded. But let me ask you this. Have you become too attached to your own successful methods? Are you using the same approaches that worked in different circumstances? Are you relying on techniques that served previous challenges? Are you trapped by your own successful patterns? What made you successful in the past might limit your success in the future. Markets change, competition evolves, circumstances shift. Your methods must evolve with them. Formlessness requires ego detachment from method. Your identity cannot be tied to specific approaches. Your self-worth cannot depend on particular techniques. Your reputation cannot rely on consistent style. This is difficult for most people because style feels like identity. This is how I do things. This is my approach. This is what I'm known for. Musashi was known for winning. How he won was secondary to whether he won. His identity was attached to outcomes, not methods. This freed him to use whatever worked in each specific situation. No internal resistance to changing approaches. No emotional attachment to particular techniques. No ego investment in stylistic. Consistency. Formlessness also prevents opponents from developing specific countermeasures. When they can't predict your methods, they can't prepare specific responses. They must react in real time rather than executing planned counters. Real time. Reaction is always slower than planned response. By remaining formless, you force opponents to operate at a disadvantage, even if they possess superior technical skill. The formless fighter appears to have no weaknesses because they have no consistent patterns for opponents to exploit. Every technique is temporary, every approach is situational, every method is expendable, but formlessness requires extensive preparation. You must master multiple approaches so thoroughly that you can switch between them without conscious thought. You must understand various principles so deeply that you can apply them fluidly. This is mastery beyond technique. It's mastery of adaptation itself. Musashi trained until he could fight effectively from any position with any weapon, against any style. His formlessness was built on the foundation of comprehensive competence. You can't become formless by avoiding form. You become formless by mastering many forms until form itself becomes a tool rather than an identity. Study widely, practice extensively, master thoroughly. Then hold everything lightly. Be ready to abandon any method that no longer serves your objective. Be willing to adopt any approach that better serves your goal. Be prepared to flow around obstacles rather than breaking through. They can't block what they can't read. They can't counter what they can't predict. They can't prepare for what they can't define. Don't become flashy. Become formless. Flow around them. Leave no trace. Because the most powerful style is having no style at all. You'll look plain to the crowd, but deadly to the elite. Stay hidden. Stay sharp. True mastery appears effortless to those who don't understand effort. It looks simple to those who can't see complexity. It seems easy to those who don't recognize difficulty. This invisibility is not a flaw of mastery, it's a feature. Musashi's greatest techniques appeared almost boring to casual observers. No flashy movements, no dramatic gestures, no obvious displays of power, just clean, efficient, devastating effectiveness. The crowd wanted spectacle. Masters delivered results. Most people expect mastery to announce itself. They think expertise should be obvious, impressive, and immediately recognizable. They want masters to look like masters, sound like masters, and perform like masters in ways that anyone can appreciate. This expectation reveals their ignorance about what mastery actually is. Real mastery is so refined that it appears natural, so polished that it seems effortless, so practiced that it looks spontaneous. The 10,000 hours of preparation are invisible in the 10 seconds of execution. But here's what most people don't understand about the invisibility of mastery. It's intentional camouflage, not accidental hiding. Masters don't need recognition from people who can't recognize mastery. They don't require appreciation from those who can't appreciate excellence. They don't seek validation from those who can't validate competence. Musashi never performed for crowds. He executed for outcomes. His validation came from results, not applause. His satisfaction came from effectiveness, not recognition. This independence from external appreciation is what allows mastery to remain invisible. When you don't need others to see your skill, you don't need to make your skill visible to others. The moment you start showing off is the moment you stop improving. The energy that goes toward display is energy that doesn't go toward development. The attention that focuses on appearance is attention that doesn't focus on advancement. Musashi understood that mastery and showmanship are opposing forces. The more you focus on looking impressive, the less you focus on being effective. The more you worry about external recognition, the less you concentrate on internal development. But let me ask you this. Are you more concerned with appearing competent or being competent? Do you choose actions that look impressive or actions that produce results? Do you select methods that others will notice or methods that actually work? Do you prioritize recognition from peers or progress toward objectives? Most people compromise their development for appreciation. They choose the visible technique over the effective technique. They select the dramatic approach over the practical approach. They want credit more than they want achievement. This is why most people never reach mastery. They're too busy performing mastery to develop mastery. The invisible nature of true expertise also creates strategic advantage. Opponents underestimate what they can't see. Competitors dismiss what they don't recognize. Challenges appear easier. When your capabilities appear ordinary, Musashi often benefited from this underestimation. Opponents prepared for someone who looked unremarkable and fought someone who was extraordinary. The gap between appearance and reality created psychological shock that disrupted their entire strategy. When your mastery is invisible, you maintain the element of surprise. When your competence is hidden, You control when to reveal it. When your preparation is concealed, you choose when to unleash it. This concealment isn't deception. It's strategy. Why give opponents information that helps them prepare against you? Why show capabilities that alert them to your true threat level? Masters reveal only what serves their immediate objective. Everything else remains hidden until needed. But staying invisible requires discipline. The ego wants recognition. The mind wants appreciation. The heart wants acknowledgement. You must be satisfied with your own assessment of your progress. You must find fulfillment in your own understanding of your development. You must derive meaning from your own recognition of your growth. Musashi's greatest teacher was his own honest evaluation of his performance. He didn't need external teachers to tell him what he already knew. He didn't require public validation. Of capabilities he had already proven to himself. This internal scorecard kept his focus on substance rather than style, on effectiveness rather than appearance, on results rather than recognition. The elite recognize mastery immediately because they understand what they're seeing. They appreciate the subtlety because they know how difficult subtle appears. They respect the invisible excellence because they know how much work invisible excellence requires. Your mastery will be recognized by those qualified to recognize it. Their recognition matters because their standards matter. Everyone else's opinion is irrelevant because their understanding is inadequate. Stay hidden from the crowd. Stay visible to the elite. Stay focused on development, regardless of recognition. You'll look plain to those who can't see complexity. You'll appear ordinary to those who don't understand extraordinary. You'll seem simple to those who can't appreciate sophistication. Perfect. Let them underestimate you while you continue improving. Let them overlook you while you continue developing. Let them dismiss you while you continue advancing. Stay hidden, stay sharp, stay superior. Because mastery doesn't need an audience. It only needs application. They can swing, they can scream, but if you don't break, you win. The secret to being unbeatable has nothing to do with never being hit. It has everything to do with never being moved, not physically moved, mentally moved, emotionally moved, spiritually moved from your center. Musashi understood that battles are won in the mind before they're won with the sword. The warrior who maintains internal stability while everything external is chaos has already achieved victory. The outcome is just confirmation. Unshakable doesn't mean unfeeling. It means unmovable from purpose, undeterred from objective, uncompromised in principle. You will be tested. Opponents will swing at your confidence. Circumstances will scream at your composure. Setbacks will assault your determination. The question isn't whether these attacks will come. The question is whether they will move you. If they can't move you, they can't beat you. Most people break not from the strength of external pressure, but from the weakness of internal foundation. They're defeated not by superior opponents, but by insufficient preparation of mind, body, and spirit. Musashi built himself into something that couldn't be broken, because it was supported by something that couldn't be shaken. Absolute commitment to his path, complete confidence in his preparation, and total acceptance of whatever outcomes his best effort produced. This is the foundation of unshakability. You've done everything you can do. You're ready for whatever comes. And you're at peace with the process regardless of specific results. But here's what most people don't understand about being unshakable. It's not about being unmoved by everything. It's about being unmoved by anything that doesn't serve your highest purpose. Musashi was moved by opportunities to improve. He was affected by chances to learn. He was influenced by possibilities for growth. But he was unmoved by insults, threats, discouragements, or attempts to distract him from his chosen path. He had a filter. What served his development passed through. What didn't serve his development was blocked. This selective permeability kept him open to useful information, while protected from useless interference. You need the same filter. open to feedback that helps you improve, closed to criticism that only tears you down, receptive to challenges that build your capabilities, resistant to obstacles that only waste your energy. The unshakable warrior chooses what affects them. They're not victims of circumstances. They're architects of responses. But let me ask you this. What's trying to shake you right now, and how much of it deserves to succeed? Are you being moved by legitimate concerns or imaginary fears? Are you being affected by valid feedback or meaningless noise? Are you being influenced by real obstacles or perceived limitations? Most of what tries to shake you has no real power, except what you give it. Most of what seems threatening is only threatening if you accept the threat as real and significant. Musashi faced real threats, opponents with sharp swords and deadly intentions. Yet he remained unshakable because he had prepared for exactly these moments. The threats were real, but his readiness was more real. Your threats might be different, but your approach should be the same. Prepare so thoroughly that you're ready for whatever comes. Train so completely that you're confident in your capabilities. Build so strong an internal foundation that external storms can't topple your structure. Unshakability isn't stubbornness. Stubborn people resist everything, including information that could help them. Unshakable people remain firm on principles while staying flexible on methods. You can adapt your tactics while maintaining your strategy. You can change your approach while keeping your objective. You can adjust your methods while preserving your mission. This flexibility within firmness is what makes truly strong people so difficult to defeat. They bend without breaking. They adjust without abandoning. They flow without losing direction. The secret to being unbeatable is understanding that you don't have to win every exchange to win the overall engagement. You don't have to counter every attack to achieve your objective. You don't have to respond to every provocation to maintain your position. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response. Sometimes the strongest action is inaction. Sometimes the best defense is simply refusing to be moved from your chosen path. Musashi won many duels, not by attacking more effectively than his opponents, but by remaining centered while they became scattered, by staying calm while they became agitated, by maintaining focus while they lost composure. Their own emotional turbulence defeated them more thoroughly than any sword technique could have. Build that same internal stability, develop that same mental toughness, create that same emotional resilience. When storms come, and they will come, remain at your center. When attacks arrive, and they will arrive, stay on your path. When pressures mount, and they will mount, keep your foundation solid. They can swing at your confidence, but your confidence is built on preparation they can't attack. They can scream at your composure, but your composure is rooted in acceptance they can't disturb. They can assault your determination, but your determination is anchored in purpose they can't understand. If you don't break, you win. Not always. Immediately. Not always, obviously, but eventually. Inevitably. The secret to being unbeatable is to be unshakable. Everything else is just technique. You already have what it takes. Now go prove it.